Love and Life, Dr. Karin Anderson-Abril.
Unless we're being honest with ourselves about who we are and what we're about.
None of that is possible. Single is the new black. Don't wear white till it's right.
I'm all about living authentically and finding the best version of you and living life to its fullest. You know, there's an old saying that every crisis is not only a crisis, but an opportunity. So I meet a guy and he's great. He's smart. Karin, we need to pick out the shoes. Successful. This was not what I had anticipated. I had my life planned out.
Psychologist, author, speaker, former professor, and musician.
Yes, I was a runaway bride.
Channel your path to a more authentic you, living an authentic life. Listen to Dr. Karin right now on Love and Life.
Welcome to Dr. Karin Love and Life. Hi there. I'm Dr. Karin Anderson-Abril. I'm a psychologist, author, speaker, former professor, and musician. You might know me from my latest book, Single is the New Black. Don't wear white till it's right. I'm here on my new podcast. We'll be talking about living and relating authentically in all realms of life. We'll look at how to have true intimacy in romantic relationships, more meaningful friendships, healthier family connections, more productive and fulfilling careers, and we'll learn methods for staying happy, hopeful, and positive, all while channeling a path to a more authentic you, living an authentic life. So today on the show, I want to talk about selfies. And I'm going to make the connection between taking selfies and living authentically. And initially you're going to say, because there's no connection there, right? But actually, I want to take a look at a selfie as a metaphor for an opportunity to really examine who we are and where we are and what we're about. So think about it this way, and I'll just go back to my own personal experience from, as you guys know, calling off a wedding when I was engaged for that year to the wrong guy, a great guy, but the wrong guy. And I think about if I'd been taking selfies, which at the time, this was a couple years ago and selfies weren't a thing, but if I'd been taking selfies and really then looking at the pictures that resulted from those selfies and taking a real objective look at them, I'd see a fiance, I'd see a bride who was sad. I'd see pictures of a bride at her engagement party feeling lost and confused and feeling pressure to move forward with something because it seemed like it was the time in her life that this should happen, but it didn't feel right. So it's the idea of this picture that then becomes something you can look at apart from you, because when all your emotions are inside, sometimes it's hard to sort them out. But when you take a selfie and you look at it and you go, why do I look miserable? Why do I look out of sorts? That can be an indication that the reason you look miserable, the reason you look out of sorts is because you aren't living authentically. You've stepped down a path that isn't meant for you. So that's the analogy we're going to look at today. And I invited my friend, one of my best friends, who's also a counselor and a therapist, to join in the conversation.
Hi, I'm Joey. I'm from Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, and I listen to Dr. Karin, Love and Life.
Kate Lambie is in the house. So thanks for joining me, Kate.
Thanks for having me.
We have a very similar background. In fact, we met when I was teaching grad courses at Concordia University in Chicago, and Kate was one of my students. So she was trying to get her education to become a counselor, and she is doing that. Another interesting tidbit is that she's doing actually the exact job that I was doing when I first graduated with my master's. And some of you guys know that I was a therapist for kids in the child welfare system in Chicago, and that's what Kate does. So we've had very similar paths. Mm-hmm. And we connected and became BFFs. And I wanted her to hop on the podcast today just because, you know, in my book, in every chapter, I have the girl talk section. And it's kind of fun to have that interaction. So I thought this topic that I want to talk about today would be a little bit more fun if I just pulled in a BFF to make it more girl talky.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, my name is Dina, and I listen to Dr. Karin, Love and Life in Chicago.
What I want to talk to you today about is selfies.
Selfies?
You got it.
Like selfies? Like Kim Kardashian book selfies?
Yeah, you were just telling me that, right? That she has a book of her selfies? Oh,
Yes,
my gosh.
yes.
Well, so no, Kate. No, we're actually not going to talk about Kardashian selfies. But we are going to talk about selfies. The notion of a selfie obviously can feel very selfish, right? So I think a lot of us, when we see some of our friends blowing up social media with selfie after selfie after selfie, we're kind of like, okay, enough.
Mm-hmm. I like my selfie here and there.
Yeah, you're known.
I'm like,
You are known to post a selfie or two. But here's the thing. Selfies, yeah, I mean, they can be somewhat narcissistic and they can be reflective of someone who's very egocentric, but selfies also are kind of a cool way to conceptualize something that I think is really important in terms of living authentically, which you know, Kate, is one of the themes of the podcast.
I surely do.
You surely do. So what do I mean by this? Well, when we take a selfie, what are we doing? I mean, obviously, in some cases, people are just trying to show off, right? Like, oh, look at me. Here's me and my fabulous life. And But the way I want to consider selfies for the purposes of our episode is to think of a selfie as a snapshot of who we are in a moment in time. And when we're trying to live authentically, it's kind of bizarre that we cruise around throughout life with ourselves all day, every day. And yet being true to ourselves can be one of the hardest things that we do in this life.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's kind of bizarre, right? Or counterintuitive. Like, why is it so hard to be true to me when all I'm doing all day is running around with me?
Yeah.
And so I like the notion of taking a look at your selfie as a way of understanding, who am I right now? Is this selfie that I just took, is this shot, this snapshot of my life right now, is it on point with who I really am? Or is my selfie reflecting something that's not me, that's indicating that I'm on the wrong path?
Or who I want to reflect. Is the selfie I take, when I look back at it, is that who I want to reflect?
Yeah.
Right? Am I reflecting the type of person that I want to be?
I think that's harder than people realize, don't you?
For sure.
Yeah. Let me just delve into a little bit. I'm going to go professor on you, which you're used to, obviously, because how many classes did you take from me? Oh, my gosh.
Three.
Was it 3?
I think so.
Yeah. Which, sidebar, Kate was the quietest person in the first class I taught. I think it was the first class I taught. I was still an adjunct at the time. And there was a really great little seminar. You know, there was only about 10 of us in the class. And Kate
I'm
was
just an absorber.
You were an absorber.
Just absorb.
You were the quietest kid in the class. And then it's so that in and of itself was kind of funny. I'm like, how is it that I'm best friends with like the kid in class who like I never heard anything from for an entire 8-week course? But anyway, Here we are. But anyway, one of the things I think that we deal with is the fact that in our pursuit of being authentic to ourselves, we're in relationship with others, obviously. And women in particular, we're primed to be in relationships, right? And so this is, goes back to my psychology stuff. This is like a nature-nurture thing, right?
Totally.
So we can look at women. If we say women are more likely to be primed for relationships, is that because biologically and genetically we're different than men? Or is it also that we're socialized to be focused on relationships?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the nature-nurture question that we ask from Psych 101 on until we get our PhDs. And here's the thing is we never get the answer because it's not either or.
Right.
It's an interaction. But like, again, so my developmental psych background, when I would teach gender development stuff, it was so fascinating that you see how primed girls are for relationships. Like, for example, baby girls, when compared to baby boys, they make more eye contact with their caregivers. And they sustain that eye contact longer. Infants, right? Like this is like way before much socialization could really have occurred. So, I mean, then you think about something like that. Then you've got infant baby girls prefer to look at human faces as opposed to like some other object like a mobile or a teddy bear, right? So in these studies, they'll just show images of a human face versus like some other kind of thing that you would think that a baby would be drawn to, like a toy or something. And you find that the baby girls prefer to look at the human face, and interestingly enough, especially women's faces, which suggests that girls are primed to be in relationship with other women.
That is interesting.
Yeah. or that they're really motivated to be connected with their mothers, which of course would be a survival thing, right? Because
For sure.
if I can get my mom to connect with
the
me,
needs are going to get met by...
you got it. Exactly.
For sure.
I'm going to be more likely to stick around on this
Yeah,
earth. Right.
for sure.
So, but still, again, when we compare to boys, they are less likely. And of course, they're interested in surviving too.
Right.
But still, when you compare. So, throughout development, girls are more skilled at interpreting facial expressions. If girls are shown a frightened face, they're going to look over to their mom with distress.
Okay.
But boys don't respond in the same way to that facial expression of fear.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me.
Yeah. I know. And they do this early, like before we can really get at them.
I
with
know,
like,
because I keep thinking, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is totally a socialization thing.
right. And I don't want to say, even when I say that this is so early, even in the first couple days of life, I mean, we are still being socialized, especially now, right? Women know the gender of their baby, by the second trimester, I'm pretty sure, is when the ultrasounds indicate. Yeah, it's the second trimester, I think. But it's pretty early in pregnancy, essentially. So then at that point, they can name the baby.
Right.
They can already start talking to their baby, like,
Right.
hey, Janie, or hey, Johnny.
Yeah, it's already starting.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, again, getting back to the research, listening preferences, infant girls are more engaged with the human voice than infant boys. We like to talk. We like to listen. That's something.
You know, it's interesting, though. I have a friend, Tiffany, her beautiful little son is, has such a good ear and is so good at speaking and articulating. And I think he probably is going to have some kind of musical talent of some sort. So
yeah, and it's really good you bring that up because, of course, we're talking about most of the time. But you are going to have those, what we call in statistics, we call an outlier. So he may be an outlier. He doesn't match the typical picture of boys.
Okay.
And of course, I mean, we haven't even talked about it, but like with the realization now that there are individuals, in the trans community, if you're talking about someone who is biologically
assigned.
Yeah. But their experience despite the socialization, right?
Sure.
Because at that point, the socialization was in place to really coax them into whatever gender their parents assumed they were, right?
Exactly.
And yet something internal is saying, this is not me, and you guys can keep putting a dress on me, and it's just not going to be me. Or vice versa. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Miriam Connor, and I listen to Dr. Karin Love and Life in Cleveland, Ohio.
So all that research really suggests that women are designed for relationships. We're biologically primed, and that infant research shows us that we have a special sensitivity to relationships. They matter to us. We're tuned in a way that men aren't. And we love our men. It's not to disparage men.
For sure.
It's just looking at the reality of the differences.
Right.
And then we're socially ingrained. Like you were saying, there's so much socialization. I mean, when you think about sugar and spice and everything nice, that's what little girls are made of. We're really socialized to be kind.
People pleasers.
Yes. So what I'm getting at here, when we're looking at authenticity and relating, it can be harder for women sometimes to truly be themselves because we're so tuned in with others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's hard then for us sometimes to step away from the people pleasing, as you put it, and to make sure that we are resonating with our authenticity and our truth. Getting back to the selfies, so that opportunity to kind of take a snapshot. Where am I? Am I being true to myself? That's something that I think is very valuable in terms of selfies, right?
In relationships, for sure.
And so when you look at it, it's interesting because we're so good at connecting. We want to be in relationships. They matter so much to us. Another thing I remember from Judson, actually, from my marriage and family class with Professor Shea, is that women and men who have meaningful, strong female friendships are psychologically healthier. But the same is not true for male relationships. So meaning anyone on the planet who has a lot of strong, solid female friendships is healthier.
Interesting.
So men with good girlfriends are healthier than men who don't have a lot of girlfriends. Because women relate differently and on a deeper emotional level often. Again, big generalities.
But then we get back to the socialization where,
Right.
the men don't feel comfortable opening up to each other,
Right.
Because they're socialized to, you're weak if you show emotion,
Right.
and you can't be, vulnerable. I think it makes sense.
It does. I know, but I love where you're coming from also. You're like, but let's what's the why behind that? How did that happen? And that's something that a lot of psych research, we have to make interpretations. We can't 100% know. We just try to interpret the results.
For sure.
So one of the things that would be a weakness then, though, with women is that we can lose ourselves in relationships because, again, we've talked about how important they are to us. And then also when we're talking about romantic relationships, sometimes we can get into a relationship and stay in them for the wrong reasons. And I talk about this a lot in my book, right, where I'm talking about fear-based decision-making. So many women so scared of being alone that they'll stay in some cruddy relationship. And then again, as we've been saying, that we can often struggle, and perhaps more than men. And again, I'm not aware of research that looks at this specifically, but it's probably out there, that it's a little bit harder for women with our ultra sensitivity to relating and to others for us to be able to identify initially and then maintain our authentic selves.
You're listening to Dr. Karin Anderson-Abril on Love and Life. Go to our website, drkarin.me. That's www.drkarin.me. Have any questions? Or would like to share your story with Dr. Karin? Email her, Karin, Karin, @drkarin.me.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I listen to Dr. Karin, Love and Life in Bedford, Kentucky.
So for women, the whole quest for authenticity, that can be a daily challenge. And that's something that doesn't come so easily for many women.
I mean, I think it is a struggle for every woman, but especially with everything that you've shared about maybe the research that maybe we're a little more sensitive to it as women, I think it's a struggle. I think we fear isolation. I think we fear being casted out of maybe different social groups.
Yeah.
And we want to be accepted. And I think that's also just a normal human need.
Yeah.
But I think once we realize the intimacy, the true intimacy that can occur, whether in friendships or romantic relationships that can occur when you are authentic, I think the more that changes and the more that can change.
And I really love that you bring that up, because that's one of the takeaway messages from this podcast would be that ultimately true intimacy, as you put it, isn't possible unless you're truly authentic. So just like selfies can appear very selfish, and I think, of course, like we've said, in some cases they are, but authenticity, even as a pursuit, can sound to some people, I think, like, oh, you're just so selfish. You got to be true to you. Who cares what everyone else is experiencing? As long as I'm authentic to myself. It can sound, or it can seem a little bit egocentric.
It can sound that way.
Yeah. And I think that anyone who was raised in an environment, even like in the church, for example, you know, we're supposed to die to ourselves and to turn the other cheek. And those are all truths. But then also we're supposed to love our neighbor as ourself, right? So if that self-love isn't there first, everything's out of whack. Because I think for a long time...
And I think sometimes those messages from the church or, you know, the Bible can be confusing in that way.
Yeah, they can.
You know? Because you think you have to be almost like a victim.
Right.
Because my feelings don't matter. My opinions don't matter. I need to put everyone else's above mine.
Right.
So,
and that's why I think sometimes it can feel like a very selfish pursuit. Your self-awareness, your authentic...
Yeah. And if you grow up in that with those values and with hearing that, for sure.
Yeah. So I think it was hard for me to think, wait a minute, I'm really supposed to be really concerned with myself, because that was what I was taught is not a good thing, you know? So again, because I'm a psychologist and I want to get to the research, if you don't mind a little more, if you don't mind indulging.
Doctor, we need some research.
Okay. Well, okay. So there's a bunch of research on authenticity, and there are psychologists who study it. And one of the things that they find is that authenticity is related to vitality. It is actually related to higher levels of self-esteem and coping skills. Yeah. They find that it's also related to satisfying relationships, a high sense of self-worth, high sense of purpose. It's related to confidence and mastering challenges, goal achievement, and also you're more realistic about your performance if you have a strong sense of authenticity. So you see yourself clearly, again, kind of like the selfie metaphor there. You're less likely to be defensive, and you're less likely to blame others.
Right.
So...
See, and this just proves the point of therapy, right? I mean, really, authenticity, if you think about it, is honest expression.
Yeah.
And that's what you spend a lot of time in therapy trying to get to that goal, trying to reach that goal of honest expression. Don't push those feelings down. Don't bottle them up. Don't hold them inside. Feel any feeling you need to feel, you know, and talk about it, express it in some way. So all of those, you know, all that research makes sense, you know.
Right. And what I love about it is that if you look at those, don't you think you doing that is better for everyone around you, right? So it's not selfish. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not defensive, you're more fun to be around with your friends, with your significant others. Do you see what I mean? So it's like this pursuit of authenticity. In the end, everyone wins.
It's a shared cycle.
Yes.
You know, you give out and you receive back. It's just...
And, you know, again, and I've talked about this a little bit in the first podcast, and I'm sure I'll talk about it a lot more in the future, just because it was a watershed moment for me when I think about, again, being in that relationship where I thought I was going to get married. And it was hard because I had become, when you practice inauthenticity, like anything, you keep walking down that road,
right?
You become numb to your own indications,
right?
The part of you that's trying to say, hey, hello,
right.
You're living a lie right now, by the way, and you just keep stuffing that and keep living in denial, and you don't listen, and you can get yourself to where you're so numb to your to yourself.
And again, it's that lack of not being honest with others or yourself about your feelings. Really, I mean, it sounds so simple, right?
I know.
Just like say what you're feeling,
right.
But it's so hard. Our parents ingrain it into us so that we can obey them, so that we can do what pleases them, so they don't have a headache because of something that we want to share. I mean, it's really ingrained all the way back in our childhood, and that doesn't just go away.
No,
you know. So it is something that has to be, I think, you know, cultivated. Something that we take time to cultivate in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope it encourages everyone to know that it isn't a selfish pursuit, and that really everyone benefits. And like you were saying earlier, and we were talking about true intimacy, you know, I think about it this way. You know, when you do something that you have to do and you're obligated to do it and you hate doing it, and you know, we've talked about this too.
And then we think about our values, and then we make the right decision.
Hi, I'm Maureen, and I listen to Dr. Karin, Love and Life in Mississippi.
You're listening to Dr. Karin Anderson-Abril on Love and Life. Go to our website, drkarin.me. That's www.drkarin.me. Have any questions? Or would like to share your story with Dr. Karin? Email her, Karin, Karin, @drkarin.me.
We were having a gathering, and someone bailed at the last minute, and you were like, oh, Karin, I know you're not going to freak out about that. And I was, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah. Because I would share with you, I don't want anyone to be at my event, at my party, at my house, whatever, unless they really want to be there. I don't want anyone coming out of obligation.
Totally.
You know, I want you authentically to be with me.
And present.
Right. Or authentically not be with me.
Right.
And I want to give the freedom to everyone around me to choose to be with me or to choose not, and to not, like we're talking about, you know, even from the research. And I won't get defensive about it. I won't get...
Definitely. And that has been such in the past few years, such a key in my own life, is that, like you just said, that word freedom. That freedom. And that's what relationship and intimacy allows, is that freedom of expression and authenticity. And then that cultivates real love and real intimacy. You know, just all kind of, again, cycles together.
True intimacy is not, hey, you said you were coming, or you have to be here because you're my daughter, or you're my sister, or you're my friend, and you have to. True intimacy is like, hey, I'd love to have you here. And if you want to be here, if that's what your heart of hearts wants, then come. And if you don't want to be here, then you do whatever you need to do. And
or if you can't, I support you in whatever endeavor you are busying yourself with, and I'll see you the next time.
Yeah.
I've recognized, just in my own experience, is your closest friends, the ones that you're most intimate with, you don't have that problem with. You know what I mean? Like, and they're usually your closest friends because there's that safety there to be completely authentic.
But I think that takes a while, though. Don't you think? Like, I don't think that's something that was true of my friendships, like in college, for example. I think,
sure.
I think
for
there was a lot
sure.
of expectation in college.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you're my best friend, we're roommates, this is what I expect. And I'm not saying you can't have any expectations.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, there's trust that's built, of course, right? That's like over years of consistency and trust, and you both love each other ultimately.
Yeah.
And that obviously is the foundation of all that freedom and authenticity within your friendship.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the term, like, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you had a doubt, like, no, that's my girl. Right. I know she loves me.
Exactly. Because you know your best friend's character.
Right.
You know she has goals, or she really is busy.
Right. Again, getting back to the word freedom, we've talked about it a lot because my dissertation was on individuation from family of origin.
Right.
And so the freedom within families, which in some families, there's not a lot of freedom to cultivate your own identity. You are supposed to be like a shrinky dink. Do you know that term? A shrinky dink was a toy when we were
familiar. Oh, it was from the 70s. I actually heard of it, but I never knew. Yeah. That's funny. Oh, so it was really a toy?
Yeah, well, you would cut out these plastic things and bake them, and they would shrink up. Anyway, but like a mini-me is what is the concept I'm getting at.
I remember those. Yeah, I remember those, yeah.
Kate's, what are you, 13 years younger than me?
We would say probably, yes. We would say like mini-me.
Yeah, they are.
Mini-me from like Austin Powers. That's more my generation.
And then I don't know what the 20-year-olds would say. Right. So, but so in some families, there's not a whole lot of freedom for the adolescent young person to figure out who they are. And in others, there is. And it's just interesting, again, imagine this on the family level. Families that say you have to be like this, you have to think like this way, you have to believe these things because that's what our family does. And again, okay, maybe your kid will say that. Okay, I believe this and I'll do this. That's not true intimacy.
Right.
You've stifled that young person.
Well, and think about the amount of energy that takes. Mm-hmm. That takes a whole lot of energy. Kind of, a mask, really, right? Or just to keep up what you think everyone else wants you to be. That's just a whole lot of energy, and no wonder that doesn't make you happy.
Right. But anyway, getting back to selfies, so I guess, again, the theme of today is to use get those selfie sticks out, take those snapshots, and then try to look at them objectively. And that's not always easy either. Because when we're in denial and really wanting something to, like, for example, I always go back to my engagement, really wanting this because it's time and my friends are married and the clock's ticking and all that. But if you take a look at that selfie with as much objectivity as you can, and if you don't have that much objectivity, then get your counseling, get a good group of friends who will be real with you.
And also look at those selfies, figure out which ones you were most happy in.
Yeah. I like
and
that.
Usually those are the ones that you were most authentic. I mean, for me, I think of a selfie as like in the moment, you're just having the best time and you want to capture it. And when I'm saying selfies, usually, and if you look at my face page, my Facebook, oh my God, I used a barbism.
Your mom used to call it face page. Yeah.
It's selfies of me and my friends.
Yeah.
And for me, that is definitely something that's very important to me are my friendships. And so just going back at those selfies and looking like, what were you feeling in those? When were you happy?
Yeah.
And cultivate more of those times of true happiness. And usually you'll find that it was when you were being authentic.
You're listening to Dr. Karin Anderson-Abril on Love and Life. Go to our website, drkarin.me. That's www.drkarin.me. Have any questions? Or would like to share your story with Dr. Karin? Email her, Karin, Karin, at drkarin.me.
Thanks so much for listening, and thanks to Kate for joining the conversation. Next time you take a selfie, be sure you're looking at it clearly, looking at it objectively. What's your selfie telling you? Is it showing you that you're on the right path, that you're living authentically? Or is your selfie showing you that something's off, something's not resonating with your authentic self? Take a look at that selfie and make whatever changes you need to make. Take charge of your thoughts, take charge of your life. You can find me at my website, www.drkarin.me. On Twitter, I'm at Dr. Karin Anderson, and that's DRKARIN. Anderson with an O. Facebook, I'm at Dr. Karin Anderson Abril. Instagram, I'm Dr. Karin. I would love to hear from you. You can email me your story or ask me a question. I'm at Karin at drkarin.me. Karin, Karin, at drkarin.me. Please go to iTunes and subscribe. I'm also on Stitcher, Spreaker, and SoundCloud at Dr. Karin Love and Life. Please let me know if you have any topics you want me to cover. I want this to be your show as much as it is mine. Take charge of your thoughts. Take charge of your life. This is Dr. Karin Anderson Abril. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great week.